Well, I think we'll go ahead and get going, and if others come in, they can jump right in with us as we're underway here. I do want to welcome you to Disability Network Lakeshore. This is a Caring for the Caregiver workshop, and Disability Network is a center for independent living that's located in Holland, and we provide services in Allegan and Ottawa counties. Slide 2. And this is about caring for the caregiver, taking care of you. Slide 3. This workshop is for learning about the things that impact caregiving and learning about some of the resources that will help get you through that experience if you are a caregiver. The next slide, I want to introduce our presenters today. Andrea Harris has a master's degree in social work, and she is a certified grief counselor. And one of my greatest memories, Andrea, was dealing with my husband when he was dying and the loss of function of different things that was going on and grieving that, and not really having anybody understand that when you have a disability or you have a terminal illness, each loss that you suffer is grieved, and how hard that was with nobody responding to that. Andrea has worked with hospice for a lot of years, and I really wanted her input on the grief part of this, the anticipatory grief. And I have to tell you that of all the topics that I researched going into this workshop, there was almost nothing said about grief and the role it plays. And that's sad because it's such a powerful issue and there's so little research being done on it. Now, I am Chris Wistrom. I'm a gerontologist, and I'm an independent living specialist at Disability Network. I have been an ombudsman, long-term care ombudsman, working in nursing homes for many years and helping residents in nursing homes resolve any issues or problems that they have. And I've also been a volunteer coordinator at hospice. And so I felt I had a really good background for helping people that were caregivers, and for being a caregiver myself. And one of the things that I was most surprised by was that even with my background, it was just such a trial and such an effort to meet the needs of the people I was caring for. I took care of my parents and my spouse in their final days. My mother had heart disease, my father had Alzheimer's, and my husband had lung cancer. So I kind of was used to the issues that we're going to be talking about today. Financially, I paid over $100,000 in 1 year for home care, supplies, and medical expenses. And that took a lot of my savings. And then the next year, that amount went to an assisted living facility. So it was a constant struggle to meet the needs of those that I cared for, to work, which I felt I had to do, and to do all the chores and the home care that needed to be done. And after several years, my friends staged an intervention and told me that they felt that I was going to die if I didn't make some changes. And I realized the truth of that. After the death of my husband, it took me a year to recover before I even started to feel like myself again. And it took much longer to recover financially. So in looking back, what surprises me most is that even with the level of knowledge and the resources that I had available to me, that it was such a difficult time. The next slide, please. So about 1 in 3 adults in the United States is an informal or a family caregiver. And there are approximately 53 million caregivers in the United States today. And that's not just daughters. We tend to think that it's going to be primarily daughters, but It's spouses, it's sons, it's parents, neighbors, friends, and professional caregivers. And there are, slide 6, there are a lot of issues that we deal with as caregivers. Isolation, loss of work income, no time to prepare healthy meals. That may not sound like much, but it really catches up with you over time. There's the emotional distress of watching your loved one lose function bit by bit and grieving each loss. It's not getting enough sleep for months at a time and never having time to do all that needs doing. And it's all of this and so much more. So, anticipating the loss of your loved one plays a huge role in a caregiver's mental health. But over the long haul, so does watching your loved one struggle, lose those functional abilities, and recognizing that there are goals that may never be achieved. And an example of that is watching your disabled child. You may not you may not only feel sad over what the child has to go through as a disabled person, but you'll also grieve those milestones that he or she may never have the chance to experience, like going to school or going to the prom, getting married, that type of thing. So I've asked Andrea to come in and talk to us today about anticipatory grief and how it plays a role in caregiving. So Andrea, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk.
And you have provided the perfect intro with the example of the child born not the way you had wanted he or she to be born. And I always say we grieve what was and what should have been. A lot of times moms who have this experience that say, well, you didn't really, if the child was stillborn or whatever, you didn't really know him or her. No, we have dreams and they come when we're pregnant and there is a great pain attached to what should have been. I'll never forget the lady that when I was at hospice, I used to call everyone who lost a loved one. And I called this one lady and I said, condolences for your loss. And she says, oh, I am not grieving. He beat me every day of our lives together. Well, she didn't think that when she came down the aisle with him 50 years ago. And so she did not see herself as grieving the loss of what should have been. And so we need to give ourselves permission to have the feelings over the absence of something as well as the presence of something. Excuse me. So in grief, we, we want to know and need to know what our grief style is. So if the experts, what do they know? They say we're going to go through these stages of grief. That's hogwash, actually, and because it's not an orderly process. You don't have anger here and then just flip into the depression and then acceptance, whatever. They aren't like steps that you go through. It's more like a wave machine that you're going in and out of different feelings. But if you have identified in previous experiences how you respond to loss, you're going to be a huge step ahead. Because if your grief style is anger, you know going in that you're going to have to give yourself outlets for anger. You're going to have to deal with that anger, apologize ahead of time to some people, and so forth. Depression, the same thing. You have to make arrangements for yourself to be depressed and to have help for your depression. And so when you identify your grief style, you will be able to anticipate some of the things that you're in for. what I would always, people would always ask me, how long am I going to grieve? Well, there's no hard and fast rule, but we need to keep moving through our grief. If I find myself punching somebody in the nose in at day one, and then 2 years later still doing that, I have a problem. I'm stuck. I haven't done what I needed to do to move through the stages of grief. And so again, this is what you look for. Make sure you're moving. Don't get down on yourself because you are feeling angry, but you can see what you may need at that point. Um, what can you do with it? Guilt is another um, very powerful thing that people don't talk about very much, or they don't give it credence. They'll say, oh, you shouldn't feel guilty for having a child with issues or this or that. But you do, you feel this. And so you need to have somebody who will listen and, and not try to cut you off with, oh, you're fine, don't feel guilty. Some of the things that I find have helped people that I've worked with, one of the things is journaling. But because you, as a caregiver, you're so busy, you might have to cut it off. I find that I would always ask people to get a journal and a watch. Write in that journal, give yourself half an hour, whatever you need, and then put that journal away, lock it in a drawer even, so that you are have given yourself permission to not grieve every minute of the day. But that feeling of I did something about it, so much that our folks are experiencing, you can't really do, you can't fix. And so the journal, putting it down, you can say, well, I did something about it today and putting it away. And that act of putting it in a drawer, and sometimes I'd have people even lock the drawer. It's a ritual, and rituals are powerful healers. Some people will write a letter to the person, and you can say anything you want, and then light it and watch the smoke go up. And it can heal without punching anybody in the nose. You can do so many things that are powerful healers. And please don't forget to do these things for yourself. You need it and you deserve it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. As I've said, we have a lot of issues that have to be dealt with. Andrea has just told us about anticipatory grief. Often caregivers put all their energy into caring for their loved ones and letting their own needs go unnoticed. And the result is you endanger the person that you're caring for as well as yourself. If something happens to you, then you can't provide quality care. So caregiving is stressful. It's providing personal care, structuring activities, attending to the needs of another person and other stressors. And most of the time, you're doing everything alone. You're doing it all, and you're doing it by yourself. Well, in the past, we had extended families, and we had aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters who lived nearby, and we'd help each other. Well, now we're spread out over such long distances that often doesn't work. So people find themselves caring for a loved one at their own expense because there's no other choice. And without additional family members to provide care and support, the caregiver becomes overwhelmed and burns out. So caring for a loved one born with a disability can be a lifelong responsibility. It often includes grief over pain, suffering, and the loss the person that you're caring for is going through, but also coping with role changes. You may provide limited caregiving. like going along on a doctor's visit if you're invited. My sister and I do that on occasion when we have to go to a doctor's appointment and we're afraid we won't hear and remember everything that the doctor said. You may provide just a listening ear for someone, and you may be the final decision maker for someone and be responsible for their care 24 hours a day. So, whatever you do, it's both an honor and a major responsibility in meeting that person's needs. You may be a caregiver for years, and over time, stress can take a toll on your body and your mind. So it's important to learn stress reduction techniques to compensate. The next slide, please. So some of the caregiver issues, these are factors that can increase caregiving stress, like caring for the spouse. You may find that your partner and companion is now more like your child than your spouse. So roles can blur. You may have to take on responsibilities you've never handled in the past. Like consider that you may have to toilet a spouse or a parent. And especially that can be difficult if it's a parent of the opposite sex. You may lack the knowledge or the skills to provide the care that that person needs. If they need wound dressings changed or an injection, you may not know how to do that, or moving them without hurting your back. So, where do you go to learn those skills? And you may be able to find some classes in your community, and you can find some online too. I learned how to do them through hospice when I was training hospice care volunteers, respite care volunteers. You may be living with the person that you're caring for, and that means that you're not able to get away from the situation, and you can't just relax in a familiar environment. You may be caring for someone who needs constant care, and we may feel that we have to do it all, so we do the work of 3 people, and we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You may feel alone because you're often isolated with no time for friends or self-care, and you may feel helpless or depressed. When we can't do it all, we do tend to feel guilty, and we take that on and we think that somehow we've failed. You may feel guilty over bad decisions that you've made that affect the person that you're caring for, like feeling resentment at caring for them. And then how do you deal with that resentment? You may feel like you can't do the things that you want to do anymore. And you have to remember that caregiving, this is your life going on too. It's not just the person you're caring for. There may be financial stress. I felt I had to continue working at an outside job when my husband was dying because even after he was gone, I was going to have to support myself somewhat. And there may be unexpected expenses, especially medical expenses for things like emergency room visits or supplies that you need, equipment. There's often too little guidance or support from healthcare professionals. Your healthcare team may not recognize the issues that you're dealing with or provide the help that you need. When my father was beginning to show signs of dementia, I talked to his doctor and said, I have a degree in gerontology. I know what's typical with aging and what isn't. And I think something's going on here that's more than just getting older. And his response was to tell me, I'm not going to help you put your father in a nursing home. Like I was trying to do something illegal. And I finally said, look, if he hurts my mother, I'm going to own your house. And that's the only thing that got his attention. And then he ordered that my father go for an Alzheimer's evaluation. And at that evaluation, they came back and said, he's a danger to himself and others. So it wasn't that I wasn't seeing what I should have been seeing. It was I couldn't get the professionals to listen to that. Unfortunately, I got nasty enough that it got taken care of, but You may not have a choice about being a caregiver. You may be the only one who will. A lot of times we know if you have a child that has a disability, one of the spouses will leave and the other spouse takes on all the care. You may have poor coping or poor problem solving skills. And again, that's not unusual because you're so overwhelmed. You're tired and strung out. And without those skills, you use a kind of a trial and error method and you waste time and energy looking for those answers that you need. Then you also might find that the people that you're caring for are difficult. When you're caring for someone else, those behaviors, you can ask why they're being difficult, and it may be simply that it's safe to be a problem with you, and it's safe to voice their frustrations. They're the ones going through this, and a lot of times they take it out on you because they can. So once you have a sense of this, you know where to start looking for solutions. For example, if the difficult behavior is related to dementia, you likely need to change your approach. But if the behavior is related to fear, then that's something that they can change and you can work with that. So communication is really important. It's always important. It sometimes involves having difficult conversations. And while it's tempting to avoid those conversations, it's important to have them and work things out. And that may be conversations that you're having with other family members, trying to get them to step up to the plate. And that can be really difficult to do. The next slide, please. So some caregivers deal with overly involved family members, ones who are often judgmental or have conflicting views about what should or shouldn't be done. We know we've heard that all the time. Or perhaps your family members are disengaged and they aren't willing to help no matter how much you ask. So once again, communication is real important. It's also important to recognize that you might not be able to change a family member's approach. If things aren't changeable, then you need to learn to do the best that you can with what you've got and work out how to draw boundaries and when to engage with your family members and when not to. So we have slide number 11. And I think I'm one ahead of you here. There we go. So caregiver burnout can happen. It's often necessary to set aside many of your own needs in order to be there for the person that you're caring for. And in the long term, this can make you depressed. It depletes your reserves and it leaves you feeling drained. And that's why it's really important that you take care of you. Caregiving is rewarding. It is something that we want to do, that we want to be there for the people that we love, but it's stressful. And the demands of caregiving can cause emotional, mental, and physical stress. So it's common to feel angry, frustrated, worn out, or sad. Some of the signs of caregiver burnout include chronic fatigue. Caring for someone can involve hours of effort and nights of interrupted sleep. I remember my husband often called me in and said, something's wrong. And I'd say, well, what is wrong? Well, I don't know. Well, what can I do to help? I don't know. So I'd fluff the blankets and sit with him for a little while and he'd fall back to sleep. Sometimes I felt really overwhelmed, like there was way too much to do and too little time to do it. It often involved neglecting myself, missing my own doctor's appointments, or not having the time to do the things I needed to do. Sometimes there were mood swings. Exhaustion can make you frustrated and angry. And you may fear the future and want to get on with it at the same time. And so you feel guilty over everything. There are physical symptoms that can come to play. Frequent headaches, it can increase pain. And other health problems can get worse. You can feel withdrawn and isolated because you can't get away. and you can't have people over. Cognitive changes in your loved one and in yourself. Stress and exhaustion can result in confusion and forgetfulness. There can be excessive worry because you feel like things are never going to change and you feel depressed and hopeless. And then resentment toward the person that you're caring for. So, too much stress over time can harm your health, and general self care can take a hit. It increases your risk of health conditions like heart disease and diabetes. Next slide, please. So it's a tremendous amount of issues that can negatively impact caregiving. And how do you overcome those issues? So we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. I don't think we really need to take a break at this time, so we're just going to keep going. But I do want to give a few solutions for how to handle these situations. So the next slide, please. When you're dealing with financial stress, you want to look for ways to cut cost, and that may include reducing your electricity and water use, paring down your food budget where you can, and finding ways to save on entertainment. You might want to look for discounts. Seniors are often eligible for discounts, and they aren't always advertised, so it doesn't hurt to ask. Talk to family members. Sometimes they're willing to chip in financially because they can't provide you with help in other ways. So it doesn't hurt to ask. And look for financial assistance. There aren't a lot of federal programs to support caregivers, but you may find some local programs that can. And look for whether you can get paid to provide that care. Some states will pay adult children to care for their aging parents or other family members, and that's through the family member, oh, come on, FMLA, Leave Act. The next slide. So take some time for yourself and don't feel guilty about it. Allow yourself some time to decompress. And by that, I mean, go to a movie, read a book, listen to your favorite music, or go on a drive. Choose a different environment where you can forget about your responsibilities for a while. Your family and friends need to step up and help out at times. Manage your stress. Well, some of those tips include asking for and accepting help. Make a list of ways that others can help you and let them choose what they can do. Take walks together, or cook a meal, or help with medical appointments. Focus on what you can do. Believe that you're doing the best that you can, and set goals that you can reach. Break your tasks into smaller steps that you can do one at a time, and make lists of what's most important. Try following a daily routine and say no to requests that are draining, such as hosting meals for holidays or other occasions. And I'm always surprised at the people who continue to take that kind of thing on. Just because you've always provided the meal at Christmas doesn't mean you have to do it every year. Recognize that you can't do it all. Schedule time to get enough sleep or rest. And I can't stress that one enough, that sometimes you just have to say, I'm going to go take this hour to lay down. And if you'll take care of my person, then it'll give me a chance to regroup a little bit. Prioritize what really needs to be done and focus on self-care for you. Take some personal time for you. Eat healthy meals and get enough sleep and exercise. Next slide. Get connected. Remember that interacting with others can re-energize you. So even a short phone call or chatting with a friend can help reduce your isolation. Make lists to stay organized. Use tools like calendars or reminders, and don't hesitate to delegate tasks when you can. Join a support group. People in support groups know what you're dealing with, and they know the best ways to make do and to get around things. Seek some social support. Stay connected with your friends and family. Make time each week to visit with someone, even if it's just a walk or a quick cup of coffee. Those things are really important. And take care of your health. Get vaccines and your regular health screenings and strive for better sleep, healthier eating, and more exercise, and drinking plenty of water. Now, resentment is a common sign of burnout. So talk to a therapist or a trusted friend if you need to. And try alternative therapies, complementary therapies like controlled breathing or calm music, aromatherapy, or counseling if you need it. Share your feelings. Find a friend, a counselor, or a support group to help process your feelings. And don't sweat the small stuff. There are some things that you just have to let go. And while you're focusing on more important things, accept help. Others may want to help and may offer to help, so let them. Don't take it personally when your loved one snaps at you or is aggressive. They're living with their disability 24/7, and it's only natural that they'll strike out at someone who's safe. So remember that fears, stress, and other feelings may be expressed as anger. And don't take it personally if others aren't willing to help. They may not be willing to face the possibility of being in your shoes down the road. Next slide. So stay active and stay strong. Make time for your friends. You'll need them now more than ever, and they often can see things from a different perspective. Pamper yourself. Reward yourself for a job well done, and stay hopeful because it can keep you going. Some additional measures that you can take: you can join a caregiver support group if you can, and check with your local hospital, hospice, or senior center to see if you can find a group. Continue to take good care of yourself. Prioritize your doctor appointments. Take your medications regularly and eat healthy foods. Get enough rest and take the time to exercise and relax. Don't neglect your spiritual side. Pray or meditate and talk with your pastor or priest. Go to church. Choose what advice you think is worthwhile. Not everyone's going to offer sound advice. And people often think that they know what's happening when they haven't been in this situation and they haven't been in your shoes. So you don't have to follow everyone's advice. The next slide. So many people want to help. And if you need help, ask for it. And if asking's hard, here are some tips that you can try. Ask for small things at first, if that makes it easier. Many large jobs can be broken down into simpler tasks. If you're not comfortable asking face-to-face, send a text or an email with your request. Consider a person's skills and interests when you're thinking about how they could help. And be prepared with a list of things that need to be done, and let the other person choose what they'd like to do. If someone offers to help, practice saying, "Thanks for asking. Here's what you can do. Here's what I need." And be honest about what you need and what you don't need. Not every offer is going to be helpful. And be prepared for some people to say no. And don't take it personally. If they can't help, they can't help, and move on. The next slide. You may want to consider looking into respite care, because taking a break can be one of the best things that you can do for yourself and the person that you're caring for. I remember when I had friends come over and stay with my husband so that I could go get groceries and stuff. He enjoyed having other people come in and talk to them, talk to him. And so look at in-home respite, where you have a health aide come into your home. I went through Senior Resources and had them do an assessment, and they were able to place an aide in my home. Talk to your doctor about what services are available in your area, and consider calling your local service provider and requesting a needs assessment. They will send someone in to look at all the different issues that are taking place and what they can do to help. There are adult daycare centers and programs for daycare that provide daycare for older adults, short-term nursing home stays, some assisted living homes have memory care homes or nursing homes that accept people who need care for short stays while the caregiver gets away a little bit. The next slide. Take the time to eat right, because what you eat can affect how you handle stress. When we're stressed, our bodies produce stress hormones, and that affects things like our appetite and digestion. So there are certain nutrients like magnesium and omega-3s that are great at helping your body manage stress by supporting the nervous system and reducing inflammation. So chronic stress saps magnesium and B vitamins from your body, reducing your ability to adapt. So foods that can help you manage stress include dark chocolate, which are rich in antioxidants and magnesium and can help your body relax. I always say, if nothing else, give me chocolate and I can handle things. Whole grains, they balance the blood sugar and they reduce mood swings. Nuts and seeds are high in heart-healthy fats, and magnesium can help regulate your mood. Leafy greens are high in magnesium, which also helps improve sleep. And fatty fish is high in magnesium. Berries are full of antioxidants and vitamin C and help fight stress and reduce inflammation. So take the time to look at what you're eating and eat healthy. The next slide. The Family and Medical Leave Act, employees are covered under the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, and it may allow you to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave a year to care for relatives. And you can talk to your human resources offices about choices for unpaid leave. Sometimes you can use PTO, sometimes you can find other ways to get some money coming in. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean taking time off from work and just immersing yourself in taking care of your loved one. It actually means taking some time for yourself to get rested up and regroup your strength. The next slide. Now, there are a lot of people that are long distance caregivers, and I included this little section in here simply because a lot of times they feel very guilty that they're not doing enough and they're not helping enough. And it's their own kind of stress. They feel guilty over not being closer, about not having enough time to help and letting you handle it all. So family members may resent that you can't do more if you're a long distance caregiver. And you may worry about taking time off from work, being away from family, and having to pay for travel. And although it might not be the same stressors as a primary caregiver, long distance caregivers should be aware of when they may need help too. The next slide. Now, I didn't include a lot on assistive technology in this workshop, but I think it's enough for you to know that there are a lot of devices and programs out there that can help people live more independently. And that can make you more independent as a caregiver too. There are assistive technology devices that will help you eat better, bathe someone, toilet them, help for reading or writing, mobility, and Disability Network will provide an assessment. If you need one, we do that at no charge, but we'll come in and talk to you about the different things that your loved one or you are having problems with, and we'll make suggestions for things that are out there that might help. So there's no charge for that service, and keep that in mind. The next slide, please. Now, I also wanted to include some information on emergency preparedness planning. And the reason for that is because if you're taking care of someone else, you're a caregiver, You need to be thinking about a plan for what happens in case there's an emergency. And so in order to do that, you want to make a plan. You want to look at what could happen. And it may be something like fire or flooding, tornadoes, high winds. It may be long-term power outages. Those can all have an impact on your ability to care for someone. And look at who could help out. You want to develop your support network. Who might be available to come and help you provide care if the power goes out or if there's a fire? You want to create an evacuation plan. And I thought about that a long time with my parents and with my husband. My father and my husband both had PTSD for their time in the service. And I looked at if I had to go to an evacuation center with them, what could I possibly do to make that a bearable situation? Both of them were very tuned in to loud noises. And if they had children running around and a lot of activity, that would have been really hard on them. And so I ended up coming up with some posts and stands to put them in, some rope and some sheets so that I could rope off an area that would be private for them and at least reduce some of that stress. So you want to think about those things and what are the specific needs of the person that you're caring for? Do you need to take any assistive technology with you if you have to evacuate? And what other comfort items can you find that might be helpful? Does the person that you're caring for need to be on oxygen? Do they have an augmented speech device that has to be charged on a regular basis? Or a wheelchair that requires charging, an electric wheelchair? Do they have diabetes and need to have snacks on a regular basis or medications that are refrigerated? And how will you handle that if you have to go somewhere else, if something happens in your home? So you want to try and identify the barriers and risks. Does your loved one have PTSD and how are they going to react to the noise and clamor of a public evacuation center? You may want to think about sheltering in place. And is there a room in your home where you could stay if you had to, if there was some sort of a chemical accident outside, where you could seal the room and stay safe for a short period of time? And what would you need in that room to keep your loved one comfortable? And then you want to try to put together a go kit and have in it the very basic things that you need to bring comfort to the person that you love. They generally say keep food and water to last for 3 days in your go kit. But then you need to also think about having dishes, having silverware, having a can opener, just very basic things, flashlight and a first aid kit. Those are all good things to have on hand just in case you need them. Now, if you'd like, the next slide, please. If you'd like a packet of information that will assist you in designing an emergency preparedness plan, we would love to give you one. Simply call us and ask for the emergency preparedness packet, and we will send one to you. Give us your address, and we'd be glad to put that in the mail to you. All right, the next slide. So we've talked about many of the challenges faced by caregivers, and we've highlighted some of them. And from the list, it might seem like caregiving is an overwhelming role and one that always leaves you exhausted and always leaves you little time for yourself. But that's not necessarily true. Caregiving can also be a joy, and it's a way of giving back to those who've supported you and who can thrive within that care. So taking the time for yourself can actually make you a better caregiver. Self-care is not selfish. If you can find small ways to lower your stress and boost your mood, you'll have more energy to take care of yourself and your loved one. So don't forget to stay active. Find some activity that you enjoy. Eat well, work on having a well-balanced diet that includes a variety of healthy foods, and drink plenty of water every day. Prioritize your sleep. Aim to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And reduce your stress. Try relaxation techniques like meditation or journaling, like Andrea was talking about. Try Tai Chi or yoga. Download a smartphone app with guided meditations or relaxing music, and many of these apps are free. Make the time to relax. Carve out time each week to do something you enjoy that has nothing to do with caregiving. And take care of your own health. Make that doctor's appointment that you've been putting off. Reach out for support and ask another family member or friend to step in, or hire an aide to come in for a few hours a week, or enroll the person you know in an adult daycare program. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to pretend to be cheerful all the time. Feelings of sadness and frustration and guilt are normal and understandable. Express those feelings by writing in a journal or talking with a friend. The next slide. Now, if someone is looking to support the caregiver, we can all play an important part in that. First of all, acknowledging the importance of their role. The primary caregiver is the most important role that they're going to play, and let them know that you appreciate what they're doing. Find ways to provide emotional support and give the primary caregiver a break. Ask them what you can do that would be most helpful. In time, the person you care for may have to move to a residential or live-in facility, such as an assisted living home or a nursing home. And if that happens, the caregiver is going to need your support. So work together to select a facility and coordinate the move. The next slide. So in conclusion, if you only focus on caring for your loved one, you may forget that this is also your life wrapped up in this too. You're vital to the continued functioning of the one you care for. And if you can't maintain, it's going to impact them. So caring for yourself means taking the time you need to regroup, to recover, and to rededicate yourself to providing quality care. You're absolutely essential to providing the care your loved one needs. And in the big picture, it's 2 lives we're talking about here. And it's important that you remember that and live a quality life for yourself too. Next slide. So do you have any questions for us? And Michelle, if you can unmute. We do have some resources that we want to share with you. And by all means, if you have any questions, you can contact us either by emailing us or calling us. Michelle's going to put up some resources that I collected now, and if you'd like a copy of those, please give me a call. So if you are looking to get paid as a caregiver for a family member, you can go to usa.gov/family caregiver and get more information. There are some programs that will pay for that. You may be also able to get some funds through a state Medicaid program. Then there is some long-term care insurance that will pay for some care, and there are some forms of paid family leave you might be able to get in on. Again, local area agencies on aging might be able to tell you about more of what's out there. And veteran programs, there are a lot of those that will help. The aid and attendance program, and we have some of that information, or you can go through your local service officers. And then I think we have another handout to share with you too.
One I'd like to mention, you did hit on it briefly, is is your faith family, because
Mm.
I have been really astounded at some of the help that some churches will give one of their members. For example, setting up a schedule of meals. That would be so helpful for a lot of caregivers. Others may provide in-home respite so that you can go to church. For some people, that's just critical.
Mhm.
And I what I heard so often was that people were disappointed that some people that they thought would be supportive weren't. But let yourself appreciate the ones who you never thought would provide help, and they come in like an angel. And so you'll find surprises, and
Mhm.
some of them will be very good surprises.
That's very true. I had a good friend that I had to go into work one day and I called my friend and asked if she would stay with my husband. And she did. She went in to stay. And at one point he fired her and sent her home, which he was infamous for firing all of my caregivers that I would bring in while I was trying to work. And she just very, very calmly said, I have to wait here until Chris comes. And she handled it so well. And I was so surprised to have that level of care from a good friend as opposed to someone who's professionally trained. And she just acted in love. And it was great.
The other thought that I had while we were talking was that the difference between anticipatory grief and grief after someone has passed. When you have anticipatory grief, you don't really know when the end comes.
Yes.
And that is very hard to do. You don't wish for this person to pass, and yet you know it might be the best for them. There's a lot of guilt and everything tied up in that. Whereas when the person has passed, like my work with hospice, well, they would say, I'm not going to grieve because I grieved while I was taking care of them. No, this is different. You will still grieve, but it will be different. And so having someone to talk to about grief is very essential.
I agree with that. I think that grief is something that is slowly making its way to the forefront and that there will be more research done on it, hopefully, in the future, because I think it plays a big part in how we interact with our loved ones, and that knowing that something is coming and that you don't want it, but it's almost like wanting to get through it just to have it done with.
Right.
And then it brings all the guilt and stirs that pot, and it can just be so difficult to handle.
It can be, because I can remember with my husband, he had a lot of chemo and he suffered so much. And that just tore me apart.
Mhm.
And so for a few days after he passed, there was, oh, he's not suffering anymore. And then the guilt comes in. Well, no, I didn't want him to die. And it's complicated, and you need to have someone in your life where you feel free to say these conflicting thoughts and talk about it and work it through. And it will take a while. You think, well, he's gone, what can grief do? It can do a lot, and you need to be kind to yourself.
Yes, I remember when I ended up putting my husband in the facility.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. Talk about a mixed bag of being glad that he was getting the care that he needed. Glad that I had a little bit of free time for myself, but actually not even feeling like I could accept that and that it was wrong to enjoy it. Yeah, it was really strange. So there's a lot that really falls into this caregiving role that we take on. when we're providing care for someone with a disability. And again, this can be a lifelong commitment. If you have a child who's disabled, you may be looking at years and years of providing that care. And it can be daunting, to say the least. So we as Disability Network are here to be as supportive as we can in any way that we can. And we hope that you'll give us a call. And I do want to apologize for this going so much more quickly than I thought it would, but I do appreciate you being here and listening to us, and I thank you very much.